Diminishing marginal utility describes why each extra unit of something often feels less valuable than the one before it. The first slice of pizza may be satisfying, the second pleasant, and the fifth barely interesting. The idea is about the value of the next unit, not the total value of the whole thing. The first bite of food solves hunger, while the later bites mostly add comfort or habit. Economists use the word broadly, so it can describe hunger, comfort, convenience, status, or time saved. Utility means satisfaction or usefulness. A choice makes more sense when the kind of satisfaction is named. A discount on a second item can look attractive even when the second item brings little extra satisfaction. Marginal means additional. In everyday life, if you already have 3 bottles of water, the 4th bottle is judged differently from the first one you needed badly. The question is always what the next unit adds. Good pricing decisions depend on the next unit, not on how much the buyer liked the first unit. The pattern is strongest when a need is being filled. Once thirst falls, another drink has less urgency. A cold drink after a long walk feels valuable because thirst is high. When people notice satisfaction falling, they can stop buying more simply because the bundle looks larger. A shopper may gladly pay for one good jacket but hesitate to buy a third similar one. Extra money tends to chase the next unmet need. This explains many everyday spending choices. Businesses use this pattern when they price upgrades, refills, subscriptions, and bulk offers. Restaurants use the idea when they design portions and upgrades. A larger meal may look like a bargain, but the last part may create little extra enjoyment. That is why more quantity is not always more value. After the basic need is met, the buyer should ask whether the next unit adds comfort or merely clutter. The usefulness of time depends on what it adds at that moment. Time follows the same logic. The first free hour after work may feel precious, while the 6th hour of idle scrolling may feel empty. A shopper who is already satisfied often needs a stronger reason to buy one more unit. Money itself can show diminishing marginal utility. An extra $100 matters more to someone struggling with rent than to someone with large savings. This is why the same amount of money can feel different across households. Bulk deals are useful only when the extra quantity will truly be used before it loses value. A customer may pay full price for the first item but only buy a second if there is a discount. Businesses watch this pattern when setting prices. Pricing often depends on how much the extra unit is worth. The idea is useful because it explains hesitation without assuming the buyer is confused or cheap. Subscriptions can hide the pattern. The bill can grow while actual usefulness grows slowly. A person may sign up for many streaming services, but each additional one may add fewer shows they truly watch. Marginal utility is clearest when more of the same thing no longer solves a real problem. Diminishing utility does not mean people stop wanting things completely. It means the next unit usually competes with other possible uses of money, time, or attention. Opportunity cost becomes more visible as satisfaction falls. A subscription can hide declining marginal utility because the buyer stops judging each extra use. If water is limited during an emergency, each extra bottle may stay valuable for longer. Context changes how quickly utility drops. Scarcity can interrupt the pattern. Buying more makes sense only when the added satisfaction is worth the added cost. Variety can restore interest. A second dessert of the same kind may feel boring, but a different flavor may feel appealing. Consumers do not only choose quantity, they also choose variety. The concept explains why the first upgrade can feel exciting while later upgrades feel ordinary. Spreading resources can produce more total satisfaction. A household may prefer one vacation, some savings, home repairs, and a course instead of spending everything on one category. The concept helps explain why people diversify. Spending improves when the buyer notices the point where satisfaction starts to flatten. A common mistake is treating price as the same thing as utility. Personal situation matters in the final choice. Something can be expensive and still add little value to a person who does not need it. Restaurants, streaming services, and retailers all depend on the difference between first-use value and extra-use value. $1 taken from a very rich person may reduce comfort less than $1 taken from someone with very little. The idea also explains donation and tax debates. Policy arguments often depend on how marginal value changes. After the basic need is met, the buyer should ask whether the next unit adds comfort or merely clutter. Marketers try to fight diminishing utility with bundles, limited editions, and new features. The goal is to make the next purchase feel fresh instead of repetitive. That is why similar products keep getting small changes. More is valuable when it solves a new problem, not when it only repeats the same pleasure. That question can prevent quiet waste. For personal budgeting, the lesson is practical. Before buying more of something, ask whether the next unit will genuinely improve life or only repeat an old satisfaction. Bulk deals are useful only when the extra quantity will truly be used before it loses value. The concept is also useful for work and learning. A focused first hour may produce more than a tired fourth hour without rest. Productivity decisions improve when the value of the next hour is judged honestly. The cleanest test is whether the next purchase would still feel worthwhile without the discount. The first unit may solve a need, while later units add less and less. Diminishing marginal utility explains why more is not automatically better. Understanding that difference makes spending, pricing, and time choices much clearer. After the basic need is met, the buyer should ask whether the next unit adds comfort or merely clutter. In marginal utility, ask who pays, who benefits, who adjusts behavior, and what changes when the price or rule moves. Marginal utility becomes useful when it explains an actual market choice rather than a memorized definition. Bulk deals are useful only when the extra quantity will truly be used before it loses value. A subscription can hide declining marginal utility because the buyer stops judging each extra use. The concept explains why the first upgrade can feel exciting while later upgrades feel ordinary. A subscription can hide declining marginal utility because the buyer stops judging each extra use. When the idea is used well, it makes spending feel less automatic. A buyer can pause before the extra serving, the bigger subscription, or the bundle deal and ask whether the next unit is still solving a real need. That question does not make the person cheap. It makes the choice clearer because the first unit and the next unit are not carrying the same value. A simple personal test is to compare the first unit with the next unit. The first coffee may help someone wake up, while the third may only be habit. The first month of a service may solve a problem, while the extra upgrade may sit unused. Diminishing marginal utility helps people stop treating every extra purchase as equally valuable.